Everyone, and welcome to this evening's session, Explore Food and Agriculture at Melbourne. My name is Jonty Hall. I'm in student recruitment here in the Faculty of Veterinary and Agricultural Sciences as part of our broader future students team here at the University of Melbourne. And I'll be giving you a rundown of some of our exciting options in food and agricultural science. Before I continue this evening, however, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which the university conducts its business, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Of course, the Wurundjeri people are the traditional owners of the land here at the Parkville campus where I am right now, but I just also would like to pay tribute to the elders past and present of wherever you may be today, whether that's here in Melbourne or further afield. So why would you want to study agricultural and food science? It's a question that I get asked quite a lot in my job, and it really all comes down at the end of the day to food. Everyone on Earth needs to eat food if they want to remain alive, and the population of Earth continues to increase. So by most estimates at the moment, by around 2050, we're expecting to need food for anywhere up to 10 billion people across the world. Right now, it's a bit under 8 billion, I think 7.8 or thereabouts, but in only another 29, 30 years, 28 years, we're going to need a lot more food. And what that means is that we're going to need quite a considerable increase in food production. Now, at the moment, until we settle other planets, we're stuck with this one, and that means that we need to actually make more food out of the same amount of land. And that's really where agricultural science, and then by extension, food science, comes into its own. So this is particularly an acute issue in parts of the developing world, where populations can be a lot larger and population growth can be a lot higher. And so in order to feed ever-increasing populations, we need to apply smarter and more high-tech techniques to the growth and production of food. So that means we need the next generation of agricultural and food scientists to take up the mantle from the people who are already working in this exciting field and lead the way into the future. And hopefully, if you're here tonight, that's what you want to do as well. So first, I just wanted to touch on our Masters in Agricultural Sciences program. This degree is our core coursework offering in agricultural sciences at grad level. So if you've done a Bachelor of Agriculture, or even if you haven't, you can come along and study the Master of Agricultural Sciences to learn about this industry and what makes it tick and how you can become a part of it. Like many degrees here at the University of Melbourne, we offer a tiered system to entry. So if you don't have an agricultural background, that's fine. We accept students from any academic background if their grades are good enough into this degree, but you would be studying the 200-point or the 2-year full-length master's program. On the other hand, if you have done agriculture before, you're likely to be studying the 150-point program. If you've done an honours degree before, you're probably looking at 100 points. So that is in recognition of where you enter the course at and your level of knowledge. We offer 5 specialisations in this degree, so even though it does provide a good broad overview of agricultural science, you do have the option of specialising in one of 5 areas, and as you see there, we've got agribusiness, animal science, crop production, food security, and agricultural extension and innovation, being our newest specialisation. So the degree really does let you carve your own path and adapt towards what you're most interested in studying. This student here, one of our recent students here in Master of Ag Science, Jiacheng Li, chose to study the agribusiness specialisation. I think this is probably our most popular overall, and it does really allow business-minded students to apply their knowledge often of business. Many of them have perhaps done commerce or done some business electives before, to then come along and take that knowledge and apply it to the agricultural sector. And agriculture being one of Australia's largest export industries, I think third or fourth largest, depending on how you measure it at the moment, that is quite big business in this country especially. So agribusiness, quite an exciting field to get into. This is a sample of what you might study. The one I've chosen here is actually Agricultural Extension and Innovation, but it gives you a sense of what is involved in the degree. This is the full 2-year or 16 subject course, and this student has done both of the core subjects, obviously, communicating agricultural sciences and the research methods subject. They've chosen the extension specialisation, so you can see those subjects there in orange, and then really most of the rest of the degree is actually electives. So you've got a lot of electives to choose from, and then to top it off, you do a capstone subject as well. So capstone subject, if in case you're unfamiliar, kind of means a big final subject to cap the end of your degree. Often it's a research project or an internship, and indeed those are your options here as well. So we've got an internship program in this degree, or if you are looking at PhD down the line, you might want to consider the research project as a pathway to that. And in case you're wondering where a career in agricultural sciences might take you, these are a few of the more popular or well-trodden routes for agricultural sciences graduates. Areas like agribusiness consultancy, where you're applying your knowledge of the science behind agriculture to consult to the industry, to work often between actual primary producers, farms or farming enterprises of various sizes, and then their stakeholders, their investors. So that could be banks, or it could be investment companies, or a range of other stakeholders, government as well. If you're more interested in the technical side of growing things out of the ground, then perhaps soil science is for you. Soil scientists, in many cases, will probably do a PhD as well, but you can start down that path with a master's, and that would, a career as a soil scientist might involve actually getting into really at a very micro level, what makes certain crops fail, what makes certain crops thrive, what nutrition they require, and all of those different factors. So a very important field for the primary producing sector. Another example would be commodities trading. Pretty exciting in Australia, as I mentioned, because we have such a large industry. If you became a beef commodities trader, for example, you might work on selling, basically representing the Australian beef industry and various producers, and selling that product in overseas markets, which again is quite a lucrative and large industry. So in that scenario, a lot of people would become specialised in particular regions, and in some cases you might be breaking a product into a new market, or you might be working in an already established one. And then perhaps a more traditional agribusiness role that probably people may be familiar with is farm management. So for any farming enterprise, there's going to be a role for someone, or often multiple people, to actually manage the business side of that. So you may not want to be a farmer as such, and it's quite a, I guess, misunderstanding to think that agricultural science graduates become farmers. If they have a family farm, they may, but in most cases, they're going to be working in various highly skilled aspects of the industry, and often just as likely to be working in the CBD of a major city like Melbourne, as they are actually on the land. So a farm manager actually being an example of a role that probably would be more on the land. And these are some of the companies that have employed graduates of ours in the last few years. So you see a few different banks in the list, as well as some large dairy companies like Murray Goulburn, and then perhaps a bit of more of a left field option, working in agricultural journalism, for example. We've had people go on to work at places like Stock and Land magazine or Australian Dairy Farmer. Moving on to one of the other key courses I wanted to highlight this evening, which is our Master of Food Science program. This degree, in case you're not really familiar with food science, if you can think of agricultural science as the macro, how you actually grow things, raw products out of the land, or animals that are grown for food, or to create things like eggs or other animal products. Food science is more focused on what you do once you have those products. So a Master of Food Science student will be learning all about the applied biochemistry and microbiology behind food, what makes food tick, why it tastes the way it does, why food goes off and how quickly it goes off, all of these sorts of things, and how this is relevant to growers, to producers, to wholesalers, and the whole industry. So again, working hand in glove, I guess, with agriculture, but very much its own area of scientific enterprise. And Natalie here was one of our domestic Master of Food Science students, graduated a couple of years ago, I believe, and really enjoyed the cultural aspect of learning about food science. This degree, unlike the Master of Ag, does require students to complete a research project. So you can choose a minor research project or a major one. So quite popular to go on to PhD or Master of Philosophy with this degree. Otherwise, for students heading straight into industry, a lot of career outcomes involve things like food safety and regulation, and also the production of food, or large food processing companies, for example. So often roles in this industry will be linked to agriculture, but they may not be in some cases. If you like the idea of working in a lab, you're probably a bit more likely to do that with a food science degree than an ag science degree. This gives you a bit of an idea of what you'd study in a Master of Food Science. The whole of the first year is actually a compulsory set curriculum. So all of those 8 subjects are core, which means that you leave first year with a really strong foundation in all of those areas. You do then have some electives, and you've also got a research project. So there are some electives are common between agricultural science and food science, so you can mix and match a bit there as well. As I mentioned, some of the most popular career paths, and certainly the ones with the largest number of jobs in the industry, often revolve around some aspect of safety or regulation, although there's also perhaps the more exciting end of things for a lot of people would be something like research and development. So if you've ever wondered what goes into making, if a company like Nestle wants to make a new candy bar or a new chocolate bar or something like that, it's going to ultimately begin with food scientists. So if you want to work out how to make something more nutritious or taste better, or how to appeal better to an overseas market where performance may have slumped, the answers are often going to be found in the chemical composition of that food. So that's another very exciting area of food science. Another big one, nutritional advisement. So we don't offer a master's in human nutrition at the moment, but food scientists do work quite closely with nutritionists as well to actually work out what the composition of food is, and therefore that information can then be applied to the nutrition side of things. So before you can really understand what's happening with nutrition in the human body, you need to know where the foods come from and what it's made of. And finally, kind of tied in with the safety and regulation side, quality assurance, another really big one. All major food companies and processing companies would have QA or quality assurance teams, so that's definitely a big area. The third coursework degree and that I wanted to touch on tonight is probably the most sort of unusual or specialised of these 3, the Master of Food and Packaging Innovation. This one is sort of, I guess you'd say, interdisciplinary. It combines elements of food science, some elements of agriculture, but also elements of business and engineering. So it's kind of quite a mixture. Food packaging, again, as you might imagine, fits quite closely in with food science and agricultural industries, but this is specifically aimed at students who are interested in the packaging side of things. The business side of this degree includes some options to study things like entrepreneurship and leadership. So partly it's the idea behind it is that you would actually learn more about how to pitch new products to an industry, how to repackage existing products, again, so that commercial outcomes are better. So there's a whole range of things there that that packaging can help solve. It can also do vital things like make sure that food lasts better in transit. So if you want to ship something from Australia to the Northern Hemisphere, especially right now with supply chains being damaged as they are, the longer it can last on a ship, the better off you're going to be as the seller, and the better off the consumer will be because they won't get sick when they eat it. So food packaging, another vital part of the food industry. This degree was originally developed, I think about 7 or 8 years ago now, in consultation with industry partners here in Melbourne, in particular Mondelez International, who have a large plant out in the eastern suburbs. And the idea was that it would actually work specifically to what the industry was after. So you do get a fairly broad overview of food packaging and also and food science as well, to an extent, although not as much as in the Master of Food Science. But also there are some business subjects, as I mentioned before, that are taught in some cases by Melbourne Business School academics rather than veterinary and agricultural sciences ones. And we do the internship in this as well is quite a popular aspect of the course. And here you see an example of a study plan, quite a few electives, a number of core subjects as well, and then the option to do the internship at the end. There is also a research project in this degree too. And quite a niche course, as I mentioned, but if you want to become a food packaging expert, these are some of the areas you might end up in. Food product development, so pitching new ideas. Again, safety and regulation. I think perhaps somewhat obviously, because it's so important that people don't get sick when they eat food, a lot of time and effort and money is put into keeping food safe and well regulated, especially in countries like Australia. Packaging technologist is really taking the engineering side of things, so actually working out how to improve the technology behind packaging and how it's built, and so that it is better to store food, but it's also perhaps more appealing to a consumer. And then, like anything to do with product development, consumer insights, so actually researching what the market wants and then responding to those needs. So yeah, a few of the areas there that a food packaging degree might take you into. And as I mentioned, internships are available in all 3 of these degrees. The way they work, ultimately, this is another question we get asked quite a lot. Students in the degree will still need to actually approach a company themselves, but we are able to provide a range of support. There is a coordinator for the industry internship subject, and they'll be able to suggest a number of options that may be available to you, and also perhaps suggest where you might be best placed if given your individual interests. So when you get to second year of one of these degrees, you would have a chat to that subject coordinator and then work out where you want to go with your internship. I won't have time today to go into sort of the range of research projects available, but we do also, of course, offer graduate research degrees in agriculture and food science, the Master of Philosophy or MPhil program, or the Doctor of Philosophy or PhD program. The first is roughly 2 years long and the second about 4 years long, although research degrees are famously variable in their length. I think some people have taken sort of 8 or 10 years to finish their PhDs, particularly if they want to study part-time for much of it. If you do have a question about PhD, please feel free to ask it in the Q&A later, or you can browse our research projects on the page there. It's relatively difficult to get into a graduate research degree. You've got to have quite good marks. You've got to have done some level of research in that area already. So usually in Australia, that's a 4 years honours degree, such as a Bachelor of Agriculture or Bachelor of Science honours here at the University of Melbourne. Otherwise, a Master's by coursework degree, such as 3 we've talked about already tonight, with a minor thesis project built into that degree. So those are really the main ways to get into a graduate research degree. The other thing worth pointing out is that you will need to actually pick a topic that is supported by the faculty. So it needs to be something that we already have some expertise in. If it's a very specific area that isn't currently being researched by anyone in the faculty, then you would probably need to pick a different one, but that's a discussion that you can certainly have with us if you're interested. And just to give you an idea of the overall requirements, these numbers are Melbourne Uni numbers. It will probably vary. If you've studied in some places overseas, these numbers need to be taken with a grain of salt, but roughly a 65% or third class honours in University of Melbourne grades would be needed to get into these graduate coursework degrees. Otherwise, for graduate research, it's 75%. So harder to get into graduate research, and realistically to get a scholarship, which many students are looking for those courses, probably closer to 85%. So usually you would want to be a first class honours level student to pursue graduate research. Otherwise, another important thing to remember, mainly if you have done your previous studies overseas, is that you need to meet the English language requirements. If you've done your bachelor's and high school in Australia, it's not really something you need to worry about in nearly all cases, but it's if you have done your bachelor's overseas, you would want to just check that you meet those requirements. Ours are pretty similar to much of the rest of the university. And we actually are accepting still late applications now for semester 1. So if you've heard something today that makes you want to study as soon as possible, please get in touch with us. Applications will close on the 14th of February for the 3 coursework degrees I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, if you want to plan ahead, generally around 6 months ahead is probably the best time to apply. If you apply really early, that's fine. It's great if people are excited about studying, but we don't recommend applying more than a year ahead, just because it can actually result in a delay to your application outcome. That's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to talk to everyone about tonight. So I thought we would now leave some time for Q&A. If you have any questions about grad study in agriculture and food science, please don't hesitate to drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and happy to answer any of those questions. All right. So Sophia asks, when will the application result be sent out if I apply now? Good question, Sophia. If you're applying for semester 1, because we're in the sort of late application period, we are looking to turn those around very quickly at the moment. It could be as little as about a week if you apply now, depending on whether your application is sort of complex or not. Please don't hesitate. Feel free to apply. We'd love to have your application. If you have a question, you can, I'll show some details later on how you can ask that question. But yes, if you wanted to apply through our website now, probably about 1 to 2 weeks is what I would expect for a response. Okay. I've got another one here asking, can you do an internship in ag and food science? I guess that would be, yes, you can. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's probably pretty even. I'd say about half of students want to do internships. The rest would probably do a research project. It's not something you have to decide straight away. In most cases, a student would kind of make up their mind about that towards the end of their first year, and then start looking into their options for the following year. The internship, I should also point out, does not have to be done here in Melbourne. If you've got a great idea for something in Sydney or Queensland or overseas, indeed, as long as it meets our requirements for that subject, then you can generally do it. So you would speak to the internship coordinator and work out whether what you've got in mind is going to work for that subject. So next question here, Arif has asked, I hold a bachelor's degree in agricultural science with a GPA of 2.83 out of 4. Can I apply for masters by research? That's a good question. It's probably a bit specific to go into now. So if you would like to drop me an inquiry at the end of this, I'll put the slide up in a minute. That would probably be the best way to go. We'd need to actually look at your grades in more detail, and also just work out whether your background research-wise is suitable for that topic. Okay. Don't be shy. If anyone else has any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box now. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to all of you this evening. I hope you've learned a bit about what we've got to offer in ag and food science. As I say, you've still got time to apply for this year. For either semester 1 or semester 2. So please check out our website and go to the course you're interested in if you'd like to apply. Otherwise, if you do have questions beforehand, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. If you want to scan the QR code now, that'll bring up the form for you. Otherwise, if you just go to our website, you can find all of the details there. I'll just put that in the chat for you now. So you can find all of the agricultural and food science courses on the website. And if you'd like to know more about the subjects, you'll also be able to drill down to the university handbook to see those exact details of what we're offering this year. In case anyone's wondering, at the moment, most of these courses are still available via dual delivery. So that means if you're not based in Melbourne and you want to start the course online, that's most definitely possible at the moment. If you've got more questions about that, yeah, please just feel free to drop an inquiry. We're getting a couple more questions here. So James asks, just a quick question, is there any research into coffee currently? Good question, James. I'm not aware of an academic who's sort of focused entirely on coffee at this point in time, but there are definitely academics in both ag and the food and sensory science areas that are looking at sort of those sorts of foodstuffs. So certainly, you know, in the sensory area, there's a lot of research into flavors in various beverages. So that's certainly something you could look at if you were doing a research project. Whether or not it's kind of you would want to do the whole thing just on coffee, but certainly, yeah, I would encourage you to submit an expression of interest on the website if you'd like to do a research project in that area, because it would probably be something that can be supported. And Nafis has asked, is there a way to know what the most recent PhD thesis topics of the food science students are at the University of Melbourne? Yes, there are. I don't think there is a sort of a list specifically of just that happens to be recent graduates, but most of the labs we have do have, they'll have information about who's currently in the lab, which may include current PhD students and what their topics are, or often postdocs, and in many cases postdocs may recently have been PhD students. I would probably go, yeah, if you go to our PhD, the PhD Agricultural Sciences webpage, and then follow the prompts to find information about research projects. If you go to that page, then you can look up the lab and then go from there. But yeah, if you wanted to know, probably the best option other than that would just be, again, to submit an inquiry via the QR code. If there's a topic area or a few areas you're interested in, just let us know what they are and we can point you in the right direction. All right. Well, unless anyone had any more questions, I think that's probably a wrap for this evening. So as I said, it's been a pleasure to deliver some information here for you tonight about grad studies in ag and food science. My name is Jonty. Please get in touch if you've got any questions, and we will be happy to answer them. Ninja asked about climate change, pest and agricultural production. Ninja, probably you can, if you've got enough background in the area, research in that area, but again, quite specific to get into. So probably best if you can submit an expression of interest, and I'll be able to get you in touch with our research team. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you learned something, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks very much.